Tonight on Prime Business, government to begin talks with managers of newly commissioned Dangote fertilizer for supplies as it works to address fertilizer shortage.
We just launched this Dangote fertilizer in Nigeria. It's a huge edifice that we've had in our sub-region.
A caution on usage of Elevy. President of the Baptist Ministers Conference cautions government against saving revenue generated from electronic levy in the consolidated fund. We would hear why.
I would perhaps not recommend the fund to be placed within the consolidated fund of Ghana. My recommendation will be that a new set of fund be created for Elevy.
Plus, remittance to government to grow to about $4.5 billion this year, but the country's current account position is expected to widen marginally. I am Beverly Broohm. Please stay for details. Take the news in details. Government will in the coming days begin talks with managers of the newly commissioned Dangote fertilizer on a possible supply of fertilizers to Ghana. This is as part of measures by the government to address fertilizer challenge as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Yao Frimpong Ado, disclosed this to Joy Business after joining the Masterclass Foundation and IDH to launch Grains for Growth program in Accra.
Grains for Growth project is expected to support selected farmers with resources in order to strengthen the country's grain value chain as well as create jobs for the youth. According to the Deputy Minister for Agriculture, Yao Frimpong Ado, fertilizer will play a key role in this project, hence the need to have regular supply in order to sustain growth. He is confident that the move by government to source locally and through Dangote will help.
We just launched this Dangote fertilizer in Nigeria. It's a huge edifice that we've had in our sub-region. You see, Ghana wanted to do it, but because of financial constraint, we've not been able to start. Because the natural gas that we used to produce, a few countries have it. Ghana, fortunately, we have it. So we are now putting things, some mechanisms in place to mobilize private capital to do that business. So we will rely on this I'm talking about. And then locally, some companies are producing organic fertilizer. Zoom Lion like this is having about 16 plants in the 16 regions that are going to convert human waste into fertilizer. You see, that is what we are going to rely on, because when that one is complete, a couple of them are complete now, but we need all of them to come on board so we can be sure that the farmers will have enough fertilizers locally.
Country Program Manager for Growth Sustainable Africa, Robert Asugri, has been explaining to Joy Business the importance of the Grains for Growth initiative.
To develop inclusive supply chain of grains that will empower small, medium enterprises and smallholder farmers to be able to produce enough quality grains for food security and also to supply raw material to industry. The aim is to be able to develop a very vibrant grain subsector in agriculture space, to be able to create more jobs, especially for women and youth in the space. And we are looking at a whole number of areas. We are looking at how to develop business capacity support for these SMEs, also support them with production and mechanization.
The program is expected to last for more than 3 years.
The president of the Baptist Ministers Conference has cautioned the government against saving revenues generated from the electronic levy in the Consolidated Fund. Reverend Dr. Charles Owusu-Ampofo wants a separate fund allocated for the e-levy. There's more in this report.
Reverend Dr. Charles Owusu-Ampofo wants the government to set up a non-partisan group to monitor revenue accrued from the e-levy implementation to ensure transparency. The electronic levy or e-levy bill has been passed into law with implementation expected to kick in from May 2022. President of the Ministers' Conference of the Ghana Baptist Convention says proceeds from the levy should be strictly monitored to ensure effective use.
Since it has already been passed, and have been accepted or have gained acceptance, the next step is to place e-levy in an appropriate fund. I would perhaps not recommend the fund to be placed within the Consolidated Fund of Ghana. My recommendation will be that a new set of fund be created for e-levy and a monitoring team be placed to monitor it.
Reverend Dr. Charles Owusu-Ampofo spoke on the sidelines of the 59th Annual Refreshers Course Retreat and Business of the Baptist Ministers Conference on the theme Called to Serve, Called to Send.
Today's engagement is about equipping ministers, informing ministers, and reminding ministers about one of our calls: winning souls, teaching them, discipling them, and helping them to go out and win souls.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi, is putting in mechanisms to curb chieftaincy disputes causing mayhem in some regions.
Chieftaincy disputes going on around the country. Not only us, but the President himself is concerned about that and has drawn our attention to that as a Peace Council, that we find some solution to some of these issues that are going on around the country. And so we have put in place a lot of mechanism to engage some of the elders in some of the communities where these things are happening. We are looking at the Bono issues now, for instance.
Anita Sewajuge's report read to you.
Remittances to Ghana are expected to grow to about $4.5 billion this year as the global economy recovers. That's a forecast by Fitch Solutions. Nonetheless, the country's current account deficit will widen, albeit modestly, from an estimated 2.6% of the size of the economy in 2021 to 2.9% in 2022. Charles Nixon Yeboah has more.
Fitch Solutions said Ghanaians will continue to move abroad as a result of the reopening of borders, a situation that will boost remittance inflows into the country. Again, there is anticipated increase in foreign direct investments in the coming quarters as gold mining companies such as Goldfields and Newmont invest in production capacity. Ghana backed $3.5 billion in remittances in 2020. Despite that, the country's current account position will expand, but marginally this year, though it will not be in the same category 5 or more years ago. That said, the widening of the external account position will be tempered by stronger tourist arrivals, narrowing the services trade deficit from $4.8 billion in 2021 to $4.3 billion in 2022. Fitch Solutions also projected an increased services exports by 25.1% this year as increased demand for imported business and financial services surge.
The recent monetary measures by the Bank of Ghana are expected to mop up more than 5 billion cedis from circulation. This is what Joy Business has picked up from sources close to the central bank. George Rafe has the rest of the story.
The amount that will be mopped up from circulation will be done through the cash reserve ratio that the Bank of Ghana is increasing to 12%. This is one of the macroprudential measures that is being reviewed by the Bank of Ghana and requires each commercial bank to keep a defined percentage of the total deposit in liquid cash with the central bank. Sources say even though the policy measures kicked in from April 1 this year, the real impact is expected to be felt from today. So one can see that from today, the squeeze is expected to hit the market, a development that could help further consolidate gains made by the Ghana cedi and slow down significantly local currency's rate of depreciation against the dollar. This is also expected to check inflation rates going forward. However, some are worried about the fact that it would hit loan extension to businesses badly. The central bank last month increased the policy rate by 250 basis points to hit 17%. Introduced some macroprudential measures. These include increasing the cash reserve ratio to hit 12% and making the capital adequacy ratio a total of 13%, while provision for loans has been reset to 10%.
Economist Professor Ebo Texan is worried about the lack of exit plan for beneficiaries of the Nation Builders Corps program. The program, which was set up by President Akufo-Addo's government, is aimed at creating temporary jobs for the youth to reduce the country's unemployment rate. Assessing the impact of government's job creation program, Prof. Texan lamented the lack of skills upgrade in the policy to make the beneficiaries of the Builders Corps employable after exit.
NABCO, so you see, NABCO doesn't have an exit plan. And when you say it doesn't have an exit plan, this is what we mean. It's a very good intervention, at least. I have a nephew who benefited from it before he got a job. It's a good way to keep the youth from not getting discouraged. Because when you look for a job for a long time, you don't get the job, you become a discouraged worker. You stop searching because, So it's good that these graduates are aware that their skills are still useful to the economy. So that intervention is good. But we want the government, apart from employing them, to update their skills. So if the government wants to take this as an uptake, the government can say that when you get you onto NABCO, we are going to get trainers to come and train you and give you the soft skills. So by the time you are done with your NABCO, you are employable. That is what we are asking. We should have an exit plan, a plan that will make them employable. And there should be job opportunities, because one of the problems that I mentioned was that there's inadequate employment opportunities. We need to expand our domestic economy.
The Ghana Institute of Engineering has presented a check for 50,000 Ghana cedis to Apiate Explosion Support Fund. The presentation was done at the 2022 Engineering Conference and Annual General Meeting held on Thursday, 31st March 2022 at the Engineers Center. There's more in this report.
Presenting the check, President of the GHIA, Engineer Professor Charles Enum Adam, said even though the reconstruction of Apiate Township is directly under engineers, his institution could not sit aloof when the fundraising support was launched by government.
We are a not-for-profit organization. We collect subscription from our members, and therefore to do something significant, we needed to find another way. So we can't just go and dump our hand into the coffers of the subscriptions. So I decided, okay, why don't we have a presidential initiative? Now this presidential initiative started with, so I was working with my ED and then my IPP, and then I said, why don't we have a presidential initiative to support this so that we can donate something at during the conference?
The Apiate Fundraising Secretariat is very grateful to receive the amounts from the GHIA. She recognized that the Engineering Institute is already providing technical expertise as member of the Reconstruction Planning and Implementation Committee.
Of course, engineers are our lives. Without engineering, nothing gets done. And so to say that you're going to help is even an understatement, because you're already helping through some other institutions that are part of the Apiate Reconstruction and Implementation Committee. You're already part of it. The issue is not only collecting sufficient funds to reconstruct the community. Way beyond that is what kind of sustainable life, sustainable livelihood this community can get, and perhaps get out of the quagmire of a hand-to-mouth living.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Institute of Engineering has expressed its outfit's preparedness to offer any other support needed for the reconstruction of the town.
CEO of Desert Dew Services and Consultancy, Dr. Paul Mensa, has advised startups to do extensive research and seek professional help in putting together proposals and pitching their ideas to investors to attract the right funding. Dr. Mensa will be hosting Joy Business's new social media segment, Funded, which starts airing tomorrow, Thursday.
Most startups have these beautiful ideas, but how to convince the investor to invest is one of their biggest challenge. And so, in as much as every business starts with an idea, you need to convince me to be able to come and put my money in your business. And there are so many people seeking funds from the same source. And so the one who gets it is the one who is able to convince the investor that, okay, I have the best of business ideas and I have the best of proposals. And so how to get the investor to buy into your idea is one of their biggest challenge. And another is the fact that I always say that business is not for everybody. Some people don't have what it takes to be successful at a business, and so how to be able to tell if they will be successful at their business is also another challenge. Sometimes the ideas are good and all of that, and so how to tell whether their business is going to be viable, because remember, every investor wants to invest and make profit out of their investments. No one wants to invest into a business that in the next 2 or 3 years is going to collapse. And so how to convince investors, how to get them to understand and see what you are saying most of the time is their problem, which means that they are not able to put their proposals together well, and they are not able to pitch well. And so all of that put together, it also takes great tenacity to succeed at business. And so if you look at yourself and you don't have what it takes, I mean, you should be able to know yourself well. I always tell people, don't go into business because everyone is doing it, but know what you are going in to do and what you intend to achieve at the end of the day. It could be a combination of the two and some 1 or 2 other factors as well. Some people, it could be lack of confidence. I mean, not being able to tell your story very well as you want it to be could be a problem. And the other side of it too could be overconfidence, being all over the place, making everyone believe that, oh, I've got all the great ideas. So it's all about how you're able to pitch well. And I always advise that before you go pitching in front of your investors, it is always advisable to do a dress rehearsal in front of people who could give you some good feedback, some good critique, who have some knowledge in the business you want to venture into. That way, when they are able to point out certain mistakes to you, you're able to work on them and correct them, so that when you go pitching professionally, you're able to put up with a good performance and to tell your story well. They can equally improve on their strategies and seeking professional help. Sometimes we don't like seeking professional help because it comes at a fee, but then it's always better to talk to the people who know, who have the technical know-how to be able to point you into which directions to go. Sometimes you may think that your idea is so good, it is so grand, but when you seek professional advice, you realize that they are able to point out certain things in your ideas that if you had taken your original idea to the investor, they would have shut it down. But because you have that technical person pointing out some things to you in terms of do's and don'ts, it helps you better. Again, looking in the right places. As an entrepreneur, your aim of starting up a business is to answer to a need, and so location is key, and the need you want to meet is equally key. Some people do not take all of these factors into consideration. There's a need to do a real need assessment to tell that location, in terms of what the people in that particular location are looking for, is what you are providing. And so let me give you a typical example. Assuming you are living in an area which is, let's say, a new area, and so people are putting up buildings and all of that. In such an area, if you want to do a business, it is advisable that you go into business that kind of sells things that people will buy, and so building materials, those things are the things that will sell in that particular area, because around that area, that is what is being used, and that is what the people need. And so seeking knowledge where you fall short is very, very advisable. Don't be too scared. We won't charge you so much, so come to us.
So that was CEO of Desert Dew Services and Consultancy, Dr. Thelma Paul Mensa, host of Joy Business's new program, Fund It, which commences tomorrow online. As of December 2020, government had injected 21.5 billion cedis into state-owned enterprises. These were in the forms of loans, subventions, bailouts, or government-backed up guarantees. Now, according to the 2020 State Ownership Report, an amount of 797.4 million was budgeted as government subventions to 8 agencies that provide specific public service obligation to enable them meet identifiable expenditures, including staff costs. This, however, represents a decrease of 142.15% over the budgeted amount in 2019. Meanwhile, the Ghana Highway Authority received 94.31% of total releases in 2020. The report, however, noted that some state-owned enterprises are a potential source of fiscal risk to the national budget. Meanwhile, government received 275.48 million cedis as dividend from state-owned enterprises in 2020. Now, according to the 2020 State Ownership Report, this represents a shortfall of 15.46 million cedis compared to the target, but how far higher than the dividend paid in 2019?
Dividends paid in 2020 represented an increase of 164%, about 171.51 million cedis over that of 2019. The improved dividend payment was mainly on account of an increase in the contribution of the minority interest portfolio, particularly the mining sector, which paid 224.77 million cedis as dividends to government in 2020. This is compared to 38.48 million cedis in 2019. The major contributors to the dividend receipts from the mining sector were Newmont Ghana Gold, Kinross Chirano Mining, and Goldfields Ghana Limited. In addition, Gasem increased its contribution from 7.3 million cedis in 2019 to 27.66 million cedis in 2020. Approximately 92.61% of dividend from 2020 were from the minority interests. Ghana Port and Harbours Authority, the Ghana Reinsurance Limited, and TDC Development Limited were the only state-owned enterprises that paid dividends to government. Further analysis indicates that state-owned enterprises and joint venture companies recorded 37.5% and 73.18% decline in dividend payments.
That's it for Prime Business. I am Beverly Broohm. I leave you with international news.